The 12th of October 1900, Volume 4. The most powerful enemies of man are the love of pleasures, of riches, and of honours. My adorable Jesus continues to come. This morning he was wearing a thick crown of thorns. I removed it very gently. I put it on my head and said, Lord, help me to drive it in. And he, this time I want you to drive it in yourself. I want to see what you can do and how you want to suffer for love of me. I drove it well in, more so since it was about showing him how far my love of suffering for Jesus reached. So much so that he himself, all moved, clasping me, told me, Enough, enough, for my heart cannot bear seeing you suffer more. And as I remained very much in suffering, my beloved Jesus would do nothing but come and go. After this he assumed the appearance of the crucified. He shared his pains with me and said to me, My daughter, the most powerful enemies of man are the love of pleasures, of riches, and of honours. These enemies render man unhappy because they penetrate even into his heart and consume him continuously. They embitter him, they bring him down so much as to make him lose all happiness. And I on Calvary defeated these three enemies and obtained for man the grace to conquer them too, giving back to him the lost happiness. But man, always ungrateful and heedless, rejects my grace and loves these enemies fiercely, which put the heart in a continuous torture. Having said this, he disappeared, and I comprehended with such clarity the truthfulness of these words that I felt abhorrence and hate for these enemies. May the Lord be always blessed, and may everything be for his glory. End of the reading.
12th of October 1903, Volume 5, Meanings of the Crowning of Thorns. This morning I saw my adorable Jesus in my interior, crowned with thorns, and in seeing him in that state I said to him, My sweet Lord, why did your head envy your scourged body, which had suffered so much and had shed so much blood? And as your head did not want to be outdone by your body, which had been honoured with the frieze of suffering, you yourself incite your enemies to crown you with such a painful and tormenting crown of thorns. And Jesus, my daughter, this crowning of thorns contains many meanings, and as much as I may speak, there is always much left to be said. In fact, the reason why my head wanted to be honoured by having not a general share, but its distinct and special portion of suffering and its own shedding of blood, almost competing with the body, is almost incomprehensible to the created mind. The reason is that it is the head that unites the whole body and all of the soul in such a way that without the head, the body is nothing. So much so that one can live without the other members, but it is impossible to live without the head because it is the essential part of the whole of man. In fact, if the body sins or does good, it is the head that directs it, since the body is nothing other than an instrument. Therefore, since my head was to give back regime and dominion to men and earn for them that new heavens of graces and new worlds of truths might enter the human minds, rejecting the new hells of sins because of which men reach the point of rendering themselves vile slaves of vile passions, wanting to crown the whole human family with glory, with honour, and with decorum, I wanted to crown and honour my humanity first, though with a most painful crown of thorns, symbol of the immortal crown which I was giving back to creatures taken away from sin. In addition, the crown of thorns means that there is no glory and honour without thorns, that there can never be dominion over passions and acquisition of virtues without feeling oneself being pricked deep in one's flesh and spirit and that true reigning is in mastering oneself by the pricks of mortification and of sacrifice. Moreover, these thorns signify that I am the true and only king, and only one who constitutes me king of her heart enjoys peace and happiness, and I constitute her queen of my own kingdom. So all those rivulets of blood which poured from my head were many little streams which bound the human intelligence to the knowledge of my sovereignty over them. But who can say all that I feel in my interior? I do not have the words to express it. Even more, the little I have said, it seems to me I have said without connection. And I believe that it must be so in speaking about the things of God, as high and sublime as is the way in which one speaks, since he is uncreated and we are created. One cannot speak about God but in stammering. End of the reading.
The 12th of October 1905, Volume 6. The knowledge of self empties the soul of herself and fills her with God. Continuing in my usual state, Blessed Jesus came for just a little and told me, "My daughter, the knowledge of self empties the soul of herself and fills her with God. Not only this, but in the soul there are many receptacles, and everything that can be seen in the world takes its place in these receptacles. Something more, something less, according to the concept of them that she makes for herself. Now the soul who knows herself and is filled with God, knowing that she is a nothing, or rather a fragile, rotten, and stinking vase, is well wary of letting more filthy rot enter into her interior, which is the things that can be seen in the world. One who had a rotten wound and kept gathering more rot to put it on his wound would be quite crazy. Now the knowledge of self brings with it the knowledge of the things of the world, and therefore how everything is vanity, fleetingness, goods that are only masked, deceits, inconstancy of creature. So knowing how things are in themselves, she is well wary of letting them enter into herself, and so all those receptacles remain filled with the virtues of God." End of the reading.
The 12th of October, 1907, Volume 8. She sees places devastated because of justice. After going through days of privation and of tears, finally this morning Jesus came and told me, "Ah, my daughter, you know nothing of what is supposed to happen between now and 1 year from now. Oh, how many things will happen. Take a look." At that moment, I found myself outside of myself, together with Jesus, and I saw somewhere places collapsed and entire towns buried, somewhere places flooded and everything that existed in them disappeared, in other places earthquakes with great damage, dead people, revolutions in several places, and in some of them so violent that one could not take a step without treading on human blood. But who can say all the tragedy that could be seen? After this, good Jesus added, "Have you seen, my daughter, courage, patience in the state in which you are? Since justice wants to pour itself upon creatures, it refrains from pouring itself upon you, and the void of your sufferings will fill the void of their sufferings. Let us give course to justice a little bit. It is necessary. Creatures are growing too bold. Then everything will end, and I will be with you like before." End of the reading.
The 12th of October 1911, Volume 10. He speaks about chastisements. He continues by just barely making himself seen, but in the act of drawing my will so much to himself that I almost feel as if I wanted the chastisements. What pain! It seems he let me suffer a little bit, telling me, Things will be grave. This little suffering of yours serves to content you and to make me keep my word to you, of sparing in part. And I, thank you, O Jesus. But I'm not content. I hope I can win you and placate you, because from the news one hears about the war, it seems that Italy is winning. Therefore, since Italy is winning, it will never get to the point that the foreigners may invade Italy. And Jesus, my daughter, how they deceive themselves. I will allow the first triumphs to make them blind, and then the enemy will plot their defeat. This is nothing yet. The triumphs they talk about are without battles, and therefore without certainty. And I have seen it, Jesus. Keep me content, placate yourself. And he, my daughter, my daughter. End of the reading.
12th of October, 1920, Volume 12. The help of one who lives in the divine will is Jesus alone, and she must be the help of others. I was feeling very oppressed, all alone, without even the hope of receiving a word of help, of reassurance. Be it even holy people, it seems that if they come to me, it is for help, for comfort, or for dispelling their own doubts. But for me, nothing. So as I was in this state, my always lovable Jesus told me, my daughter, one who lives in my will is placed in my same conditions. Assume that I might need the creatures, which cannot be, since creatures are not capable of helping their creator. It would be as if the sun wanted to ask for light and heat from other created things. What would they say? They would all draw back, and confused would say to it, what? You're asking for light and heat from us? You who fill the world with your light and fecundate the whole earth with your heat? Our light disappears before you. You rather give us light and heat. The same happens to one who lives in my will. Since she is placed in my conditions, and since the sun of my volition is in her, she is the one who has to give light, warmth, help, reassurance, comfort. Therefore, I alone am your help, and you, from within my will help others. End of the reading.
The 12th of October 1926, Volume 20. What it means to be firstborn daughter of the divine will. How Jesus feels drawn by his will to visit the soul, disposing her to be with him. I felt immersed in the sea of pain, of the privation of my highest good Jesus, and as much as I asked for him, going around heaven and earth, it was not given to me to fight him, whom I so much longed for. So the waters of pain, swelling more and more, drowned me with sorrows and with pain. But that pain that only Jesus can give me, and knows how to give, to a poor and little heart that loves. And because it is little, it cannot sustain all the immensity of the bitter waters of the pain of his privation. Therefore it remains drowned and oppressed, waiting for him whom I so much yearn and long for. Then while I was all oppressed, my always lovable Jesus made himself seen in my interior, in the midst of a cloud of light, and told me, firstborn daughter of my will, why are you so oppressed? If you think of your great fortune, your oppression will depart from you. Do you know what firstborn daughter of my will means? It means first daughter in the love of our celestial Father, and first among all to be loved. It means first daughter of grace, of light, first daughter of glory, first daughter possessor of the riches of her divine Father, first daughter of creation. As firstborn daughter of the supreme will, she contains all the bonds, all the relations, all the rights that befit a firstborn daughter. Bonds of daughtership, relations of communication to all the dispositions of her celestial Father, rights of possession of all his goods. But this is not all. Do you know what first daughter delivered by my will means? It means not only to be first in the love and in all the goods of her Creator, but to enclose within herself all the love and all the goods of the other children. So if the others will possess each one his own part, she, as the firstborn, will possess altogether the goods of the others, and this by right and with justice, because, as firstborn, to her did my will entrust everything, gave everything. Therefore in her is the origin of all things, the cause for which creation was created, the purpose for which the divine action and love entered the field. She who was to be the firstborn daughter of our will was the primary cause of all of the works of a God. Therefore, as a consequence, from her derive all goods. From her do they come. To her do they return. See then how fortunate you are. You cannot fully comprehend what it means to have primacy in love and in all the things of your Creator. On hearing this, I said to him, "My love, what are you saying? And besides, what good comes to me from such great fortune you are talking about when you deprive me of yourself? All goods convert for me into bitternesses without you. And then I have told you many times that you alone do I want, because you are enough for me in everything. And if I had everything without you, everything changes for me into martyrdom and indescribable pain. Love, grace, light, the whole creation speak to me about you. They make me know who you are, and not finding you I become delirious. I go into mortal agonies. Therefore the primacy, the rights of firstborn, give them to whomever you want. I don't care about them. If you want to make me happy, remain with me. You alone. This is enough for me." And Jesus added, "My daughter, I alone must not be enough for you, nor do I want you to say that you do not care about anything else. No, no. If it is not enough for me to give you myself alone and without giving you all of my things, if I care that you have the primacy and be the firstborn daughter, you too must care about it. Don't you know that my frequent coming is bound to your being my firstborn daughter? Don't you know that as long as Adam remained the firstborn son of my will, having therefore primacy over everything, I visited him often? My will reigning in him administered to him all the manners necessary in order to be with me, as the son who forms the consolation of his father. So I spoke to him as to a son, and he to me as to his father. As he withdrew from my will, he lost his primacy, the rights of firstborn, and along with them he lost all of my goods, and he no longer felt the strength to sustain my presence, nor did I feel drawn by a divine force and will to go to him. So all his bonds with me were broken. Nothing was due to him by right any more, nor did he see me unveiled any more, but amidst lightnings and eclipsed within my light, that light of my will that he had rejected. Now don't you know that the primacy that Adam lost as firstborn son of my will has passed on to you, and that in you I must enclose all the goods that I was to enclose in him, had he not withdrawn from my will? Therefore I look at you as the first creature come out of our hands, because one who lives in my will is always the first before her Creator, and even if she is born later in time, this says nothing. In our will, one who has never gone out of it is always first. See then, you must care about everything. My coming itself is the irresistible force of my will that draws you to me and disposes you. Therefore I want highest gratitude at your fortune of being the firstborn daughter of my will. did not know what to answer. I remained confused, and in my inmost soul I said, Fiat, Fiat. End of the reading.
I will ever love and trust him, in his presence daily live. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all.
The 12th of October 1929, Volume 27. By living in the divine will, the human will ascends and the divine descends. How the divine prerogatives are acquired. I was doing my usual round in the divine fiat and calling everything it had done in creation and redemption. I was offering them to the divine majesty to impetrate that the divine will be known, so that it might reign and dominate in the midst of creatures. While I was doing this, I thought to myself, what is the good I do by always repeating these rounds, acts, and offerings? My lovable Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, every time you go round in our works and you unite yourself to those same acts that my fiat did in creation and redemption, in order to offer them to us, you take a step toward heaven, and my divine will takes a step toward the earth. So as you ascend, it descends, and while remaining immense, it makes itself little and encloses itself in your soul to repeat your acts, your offerings, your prayers together with you. And we feel our divine volition praying in you. We feel its breath coming out from you. We feel its heartbeat that, while palpitating in us, at the same time palpitates in you. We feel the power of our creative works that, lining themselves up around us, pray with our divine power that our divine will may descend to reign upon earth. More so, since in what you do, you are not an intruder or someone who, not occupying any office, does not have any power, but you have been called, and in a special way you have been given the office of making our divine will known and of impetrating that our kingdom be constituted in the midst of the human family. So there is a great difference between one who has received an office from us and one who has received no task. One who has received an office, whatever she does by right, with freedom, because such is our divine will. She represents all those who must receive the good we want to give by means of the office given to her. So you are not the only one taking a step toward heaven, but there are all those who will know my divine will. And in descending, it descends through you into all those who will let it reign. Therefore, the only means in order to obtain the kingdom of the divine fiat is to make use of our works to obtain a good so great. Then I continued following the acts of the divine will, and as I arrived at the point where it called the sovereign queen out from nothing, I stopped to comprehend her, all beautiful, majestic. Her rights of queen extended everywhere. Heaven and earth bent their knees to recognize her as empress of everyone and of everything. And I, from the bottom of my heart, venerated and loved the sovereign lady. And as the little one I am, I wanted to make a jump onto her maternal knees to say to her, Holy Mama, all beautiful are you, and you are so because you lived of divine will. Oh, please, you who possess it, pray it to descend upon earth and to come to reign in the midst of your children. While I was doing this, my adored Jesus added, My daughter, Even if my mother had not been my mother, only because she did the divine will perfectly and knew no other life and lived in the fullness of it, by virtue of her continuous living in my fiat, she would have possessed all the divine prerogatives. She would still be queen, the most beautiful of all creatures. In fact, wherever my divine fiat reigns, it wants to give everything. It holds nothing back. Even more, it loves the creature so much that, making use of its loving stratagems, it hides, it makes itself little within her, loving to be knocked out by her. Indeed, was it not a knocking out of the divine volition that the sovereign Queen of Heaven did, as she reached the point of making me be conceived and of hiding me in her womb? Oh, if all knew what my divine will is able to do and can do, they would make all sacrifices in order to live only of my will. End of the reading.
The 12th of October 1930, Volume 28. Fear is the scourge of the poor nothing. The love that God nurtures for the creature, to the point of putting her in a contest with himself. How God established all the acts that all creatures were to do. I am always in my dear and holy inheritance of the divine fiat. I feel the extreme need never to go out of it, because my little atom of my existence feels its nothingness, and as nothing, good at doing nothing if the divine volition playing with it does not fill it with its all, making it do what it wants. And oh, how I feel the need for the divine will to keep me in its life, and for me to remain always in it. Now I felt I could not live without the divine fiat or fear, and my sweet Jesus with an unspeakable goodness told me, "My daughter, do not fear. Fear is the scourge of the poor nothing, in such a way that the nothing that is beaten by the whips of fear feels itself lacking life and losing it. On the other hand, love is the surge of the nothing into the all, such that as the all fills it with divine life, the nothing feels true life, that is not subject to be lacking, but to always living. Now you must know that the love that our divine being nurtures toward the creature is so great that we give her of our own in order to put her in the condition of being able to compete with her Creator. And so we give her our will, our love, and our very life, that she may make it fully her own, so as to fill the void of her nothing, and therefore be able to give us will for will, love for love, life for life. And we, even though we ourselves have given them, accept them as if they were her own, enjoying that the creature can compete with us. She in giving us, and we in receiving, to give to her again what she gave us, that she may always have something to give us, except for the creature who would not want to receive. Then she feels the void of her nothing, without true life, without a divine will that sanctifies her, without the love that leads her to love her Creator. And then all evil swoop down upon this nothing, lashes of fear, darkness of terror, rains of all miseries, weaknesses, such that she feels life missing in her. Poor nothing that is not filled with the all. Then I continued to pray, all abandoned in the sweet empire of the divine will, and my beloved Jesus added, "My daughter, our most high will, in creating man, already established all the acts that all creatures were to do, and constituted itself life of all these acts. So there is not one human act that does not have its place in our divine will. And when the creature performs each of her acts, our will enters the field of action in the human act of the creature. Therefore, all the power and sanctity of a divine will enter into the act of each of them. Each act entered the order of all creation, each one taking its place, almost like stars, as each of them has its place under the azure of the heavens. And since everything, the whole of mankind, with all their acts, was ordered and formed by our divine fiat in creation, when the creature doesn't act, the entire order of creation is moved, and our will is in act as if it were then creating the whole creation. In fact, in our will everything is in act, and the act of the creature enters into its act, and as it takes its place established by God, the effects of all creation are renewed, and the human act enters the race of all created things and holds its distinct place in it, and is always in motion within the divine motion to adore and love its creator. Therefore, the operating of the creature in our divine will can be called the fecund and divine field of our very will within the little field of the creature. End of the reading.
The 12th of October, 1931, volume 29. Incessant breath of God. Divine life and fulfilled act of God in the creature. The facsimiles, the people, the princes, the noble court, and the royal army of the celestial kingdom. I feel the omnipotent force of the divine fiat that invests the whole of me, absorbs me, and transforms me into its light. This light is love, and it makes the life of my Creator palpitate within me. This life is word, and it gives me the most beautiful news of the beginning of my existence, the relations, the bonds of union, the communicating virtue, the inseparability that exists still now between me and God. But who maintains all this in full force, if not the divine will? Oh, power of the supreme fiat, prostrate in the immensity of your light, I adore you profoundly, and my little nothing, loving you, dissolves within you. While I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus told me, my good daughter, only my will maintains and preserves as intact with the continuous act, the beginning of the creation of the creature. Our supreme being gave the beginning and animated her life with the power of our divine breath. This breath was never to be broken. More so, since when we give and do an act, we never withdraw it, and this serves to form fulfilled works of the being that we issue to the light. While this first act of ours serves to give the beginning and form the life, the continuation serves to make of the creature a fulfilled act of ours. And as we breathe upon her, so we form in her our continuous acts in order to complete our divine life. Our breath, as we give it, forms, sip by sip, the growth of this life of ours in the creature. Our breath, as it gives itself, forms our fulfilled act of sanctity, of beauty, of love, of goodness, and so forth. And when we have filled her so much in a way that we have no more space in which to put of our act in the creature, because she is limited, our breath ceases and ends its life on earth. And in order to eternalize our breath in heaven, we transport our life, formed in her, our fulfilled act, into our celestial fatherland as triumph of our creation. There is no rarity more beautiful than these lives and fulfilled acts of ours in the celestial dwelling. They are the narrators of our power, of the ardor of our love. They are speaking voices of our omnipotent breath that alone could form the divine life, our fulfilled act in the creature. But do you know where we can form this life and this fulfilled act of ours, as much as it is possible and imaginable for a creature to receive from her Creator? In the soul who lives in our divine will and lets herself be dominated by it. Only in her can we form the divine life and carry out our fulfilled act. Our will disposes the creature to receive all the divine qualities and colours, and our breath, never interrupted, as most skilful brush, paints with admirable and inimitable mastery the most beautiful shades and forms the facsimiles of our supreme being. If it were not for these facsimiles, the work of creation would have been nothing great, nor a great work of the power of our creative hands. To create the sun, the heavens, the stars, and the whole universe would have been an absolute nothing for our power. But instead, all of our power, the art of our divine acts, the indescribable excess of our intense love, is to do our fulfilled act in the creature by forming our life in her. And our satisfaction is so great that we ourselves remain enraptured in our act that we carry out. For us, to do a fulfilled act is the greatest glory that most glorifies us. It is the most intense love that most sings our praises. It is the power that extols us continuously. But alas, for those who do not live in our will, how many of our acts broken without fulfillment? How many of our divine lives only conceived or at most born without growing? They break the continuation of our work and bind our arms, unable to go forward. They put us in the impotence of a master who has his land and is prevented by his ungrateful servants from doing the work that is needed in his land, from sowing it, from planting the plants that he wants. Poor master, keeping the land sterile without the fruit that he could receive because of his iniquitous servants. Our land is the creature's, and the ungrateful servant is the human will that, opposing our own, puts us in the impotence of forming our divine life in them. Now you must know that in heaven one does not enter if he does not possess our divine life, either conceived at least or born. And for as much growth as each blessed has formed of our life within himself, such will be his glory, his beatitude. Now, what will be the difference between one in whom it was only conceived, born, or grown in small proportion, and one who has let us form fulfilled life? The difference will be so great as to be incomprehensible to the human creature. The first will be like the people of the celestial kingdom, while our facsimiles will be like princes, ministers, the noble court, the royal army of the great king. Therefore, one who does my divine will and lives in it can say, I do everything, and I belong even from this earth to the family of my celestial Father. End of the reading.
The 12th of October 1937, Volume 35. The prayers of one who lives in the divine volition are like commands, and her acts are messengers between heaven and earth. For the soul who lives in the divine volition, all things become divine will. I am at the mercy of the divine will. I feel its anxiety, its fidgets of love, for desire of making itself known, not to be feared, but to be loved and possessed, to make all one with it, and then to say to the creature, let's live together, so that what I do you will do as well. I feel that my love gives me the need to live heart to heart, or better still, one single heart with you. Please don't deny me your company. I know that you lack many things to be able to live together with me, but don't worry, I will take care of everything. I will clothe you with my royal garments of light. I will arm you with my power. I will show off all my love for you, and making the life and the love of my will flow into your most intimate fibres. If you only want it, all is done. I remained surprised, and I prayed that he would give me the grace to live on the divine will, because I feared a lot for myself. And my sweet Jesus, doing his short little visit, all goodness, told me, "My little daughter of my volition, why do you fear? There are no fears in my will, but only the highest love, courage, and firmness. Once it has decided, it never moves. Even more so since the soul who lives in it does not pray, rather she commands, and she herself can take as the owner whatever she wants. We place everything at her disposal, this because all is sacred and holy in her. More so since by living in our will, she will never want, take, or command anything but what we ourselves want. So her commands delight us, make us joyful, and we say, take, tell us, what else do you want? The more you take, the more you make us happy. Furthermore, when the creature wants our will, all her acts are like many messengers between heaven and earth. They go up and down continuously, being messengers now of peace, now of love, now of glory. Sometimes they even command our divine justice to stop, taking its just fury upon themselves. How much good these messengers do! As soon as we see them coming before our throne, we recognize ourselves in these acts, which, disguised by the human veils of the acts of the creatures, hide our own will. But it's always our will. So pleased we say, what an art of love it has! It hides inside the acts of the creatures, so as not to be recognized. But we know it anyway, and since it is ourselves loving, we let it do whatever it wills. So we call these acts our acts, and we recognize them as such, although the creature concurred, giving her acts as clothes to cover them. She is the support on which my divine will can lean, delighting in developing its life, in making unheard of prodigies, in hiding itself within the creature, as if it would cover itself with her remains. Even more so, since the creation and the creatures have their origin in its fiat, living, growing, and being preserved in it. The fiat is the actor and the audience of all their acts. They will live their lives in my fiat and will fly to heaven with one act wanted by it. Everything belongs to it. All the rights are its own. Nobody can escape my fiat. The only difference is that one who lives in it lives together with it, knows it, and is aware of everything it does, delights it with her company, and forms its joy in the confirmation of what my will wants to do in her. On the other hand, one who does not live in it, does not know it, she remains isolated and forms its continuous pain. After this he added with unspeakable tenderness of love, "My blessed daughter, how beautiful it is to live in my will. The creature who does so keeps us always in feast. She knows nothing other than my will, and everything becomes will of God for her. The suffering is divine will. The joy is divine will. Her heartbeat, breathing, and motion all become divine will. Her steps and works feel the steps of my will, as well as the sanctity of the works of my fiat. The food she takes, her sleep, the most natural things become will of God for her. In all that she sees, feels, and touches, she sees, feels, and touches the palpitating life of my will. My will keeps her so busy and invested with itself that, jealous, it doesn't allow anything, not even the air, not to be divine will. Just as for the creature everything is our will, so it is for us. We feel her within the whole of our divine being, in the heartbeat and in the motion, and we can do nothing, nor do we want to do anything, without the creature who lives in our will. Our love is such that we make her flow in all our works. Together with us she maintains and participates in our creative and preserving act. She is with us, doing what we do, wanting what we want, and we cannot put her aside, since the will we possess is one the love, one the act we do. This is living in our will, to live always together, to be one single thing. And this was the need of our love, to have the company of the creature, to delight together, keeping her in our lap in order to be happy together. Then, since the creature is small, we want to give her our will, in order to have the opportunity to give her our life, our act, and our modes in each of her acts, ours by nature, hers by grace. This is our joy and our greatest glory. Do you think it's trivial to give our being so that a creature, too small to be able to contain it, can give it back to us together with herself, and we in turn can give ourselves again? It is a continuous reciprocal giving that makes so much love and glory arise that we feel as if we are repaid by her for having given her life. So each thing she does without allowing our will to enter is a rip that we feel, a right that we feel being taken away from us, a joy that we lose. Therefore be attentive so that all may become divine will for you. Furthermore, for every act the creature does in our divine volition, we redouble our love for her. As this love invests her, it brings with it our sanctity, goodness, and wisdom. So she remains redoubled in sanctity, in goodness, and in the knowledge of her Creator. As we love her with doubled love, she loves us with double love. Our love is an operative love, and as it originates from our Supreme Being to love the creature with doubled love, it gives her the grace to make us love with an ever-growing love. It is impossible for us not to add something more to an act made so great by our will. We can say that these acts are the kidnappers of our love. They kidnap our sanctity, forming their ways to get to know who we are and how much we love her. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.